Hi, happy fucking Monday. You know what it is. We are interrupting this month's programming with Anal August for a beautiful sex and therapy episode with the amazing Elle Fultz. She is a sex therapist and we met here right in Arizona. We're just gonna dive right into it. We have so much to talk about. There's obviously way more that can be explored in this topic, but she is accepting new clients. She has programs to help you better understand yourself, your partner, be able to talk about sex in your relationship in a healthy way. If you are new here, drop episodes every Monday. And if you found a sticker, you talked to me, you met Nashville, thanks for supporting your girl and coming by to listen. Here is sex therapy with Elle Fultz. Girl, stop talking. All the shit that people are thinking but not saying. I'm not even like drunk. I've just been like drinking. Does my podcast offend you? Men, if you're listening, I apologize in advance. Women, hey bitches, are you ready? Are you still talking? Girl, stop talking. Happy fucking Monday, bitches. I hope you're watching this week's episode and really excited because we are back and we're talking about sex this week. If you are watching, you can see that I have a guest on the show.
Yeah. So my name is Elle Fultz. I'm a licensed professional therapist and I'm an ASEX certified sex therapist. So sex is kind of my jam.
Yeah, hell yeah. I love that. So we have met once before. We have had tons of this has been the story of my life. Okay. I'm like, my listeners are probably tired of me talking about it, but I'm like, thought I was going to be doing all of this like in person recordings and stuff like that. And then I finally got that like logged down and I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing and this is so easy. And then I was like, nope, just kidding. I feel like I don't have the right setup. So then we switched to the online platform and I just end up having all these technical difficulties. So we're back today having the episode for real. And I just kind of wanted to start on how we met. So we've shared this story once before, like, so we're kind of recapping a little bit, but I just like mosey on in to my girl's hair salon and you were like sitting there getting your hair done. And I don't even know what I was talking about, probably something ridiculous. Although I think my son was with me that day. So maybe I was keeping a little more tame.
I don't know. He had headphones on.
That's true. No, okay, so I think I just was talking about my show or something, and then Victoria, our hairstylist, was like, oh, she's a sex therapist. You guys should like coordinate together. So then I started just kind of asking you, like, you know, what you do and how you got into that field. And I'm like, girl, you need to come on the show.
Yeah.
So how long, or let's like start at the basics. What kind of got you into this field? Like, why did you want to be a sex therapist?
I don't really have a great answer when I get that question.
Okay.
When I was younger, I just like thinking like high school, right? Everybody's kind of talking about sex and exploring sex. And I don't know. I just felt really comfortable having conversations with people. Even if I wasn't, like doing what they were doing. And as we got older, that didn't change for me. I enjoyed talking about sex and all things sexy. And it just kind of fit because I wanted to help people and I like talking about sex. And that's an important part of people's lives. So it just kind of worked out.
Yeah, totally. So did you like grow up from being like in a very like sex positive, fluid household, or where did this interest of like feeling so comfortable talking about sex come from?
So I would say in that respect, I was actually more sheltered. But I don't know. I think just personality wise, I've always enjoyed helping people and my parents were gay. So already kind of being in a like different kind of family dynamic from most of the people in my life. I don't know if that kind of also set me up of already being used to things that are maybe a little different.
Totally.
or having different things to share than a lot of people. But definitely a little more sheltered. Like I remember the first time I got a thong, and my stepmom was telling my mom that that's what we did. And my mom was like horrified. And my stepmom was like, she wants to feel sexy. It's fine. And my mom was like, she's 13. And
That's the
so,
start.
yep. So, just fun memories like that.
I remember the first time that I bought a thong, and I was at the mall with my friends, which is like a lost art nowadays. Like I feel like who goes shopping in malls, but
Right.
whatever. That's a totally different conversation. I was at the mall with my girlfriends, and I remember we were at, I think it was like Charlotte Russe or something. And they had like one of those big panty bins where it was like just filled of thongs.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was like for St. Patrick's Day. That was the thong. I literally remember this because my mom's response was so funny. So I called her and I was like, I feel like I need to ask my mom. And I like call her and I'm like, hey, mom, I'm at the mall and I kind of wanted to buy a thong. Like, is that okay? And her response, dead ass, was, I don't care what goes up your butt. And like, as a kid, I thought it was so hilarious. But then now as an adult, I'm like, be careful what you wish
Yeah,
for.
it's a little different now.
Seriously. Well, I think that's so interesting, seeing that you were raised just in a different type of household from what would be considered traditionally normal, you know?
Right.
And I do think that that probably helped like open up this like experience and your experience to like sexual wellness and health and some education around those things. Do you remember like a moment in your childhood when you first learned about like what sex was? Like, did your parents teach you about that?
Um, so the first memory that I can think of was probably before they had any conversations with me. And gosh, I don't know how old I was. I'm gonna guess around 10.
Okay.
But I think maybe kids were talking about it because for some reason it was on my mind. I just can't
Yeah.
remember why. I
Yeah.
remember I think one time I was home alone and I just went to sex.com on my parents' computer.
Oh,
And I don't know if the porn website still exists, but it was one. And just kind of looking at all the things and not necessarily knowing what was happening.
yeah.
And also, I think that was kind of the first times I like experienced arousal, but I also didn't know what that was either. Especially for girls, I don't think we get any discussions about arousal like boys do.
Yeah.
So
No.
from there, at some point, I know we did. I remember asking my mom when I was like 12 what a prostitute was. So at some point, we had conversations. I just,
Yeah.
those are the things that stick out.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think it's interesting because, you know, sex education isn't something that we really get in this country. And I know, like, when I was younger, we had like a class on it. But all I remember, it was literally in sixth grade. And all I remember is that they separated the boys from the girls. And we watched like a movie, could not tell you for the life of me what we watched, what it was about. And
Mm-hmm.
then I remember like the teacher vividly asking like who was on their period and we learned about periods. Like and that was it. But I love that you brought up the fact that like women don't get taught or children like that are like female, they don't get taught about like arousal in that way as like boys do because for boys it's like physical. You can see it right away and it's like, "Oh, what's happening with my body?" But for women it's like it's just like a feeling, but there's you.
Well, really, the way that people talk about it is they don't talk about the body at all. They're like, oh, you have a crush. So it's all up here.
Oh,
If you like
interesting.
someone, but there's not a connection to understand that you might physically have a response as well.
You literally just triggered a memory for me. I was like, it just popped in my head. The first time that I felt like aroused,
Hmm.
which it like now thinking of it all out loud, it was literally like that feeling of like dropping from a roller coaster. Or it was like, when you're like in the car and you go like up a hill and then you go down. I remember being in the front seat with my stepmom and being like, oh my God, that feels funny. And she's like, oh yeah, like butterflies in your stomach. And I remember looking at her and being like, no, I feel it in my vagina. And like, I don't remember what the comment was from that, but like that was kind of like I think the first time of like that feeling of arousal, which is
Mhm.
so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
New memory unlocked. Okay, so you were always open talking about sex, and you decided at some point in your life that you wanted to like make this like this is your passion and you wanted to do this in the day to day. So kind of like how did you explain to me how you got into that, and like how you found this niche of sex therapy?
Yeah. I think just in my college courses, there was a couple classes. There would be like a human sexuality class, and then in my bachelor's degree, in all the elective courses, there was a sex therapy course, and so you kind of start to learn, how do you become a sex therapist? So
Yeah.
technically, anybody can say they do sex therapy, and that can be a good and a bad thing. Sometimes people are on the track to get certified, which is what I did, but it takes like 2+ years to do that. So it doesn't mean that they're not competent or they couldn't be helpful. But
Right.
then there are some people that don't do the education piece and just are like, I like talking about sex and call themselves a sex therapist,
Which could
which
be dangerous.
can be, or just
Yeah.
not helpful. Um, but I wanted to do the track of like, I got the education, I am knowledgeable, experienced. So I got certified through ASECT, which is the America's Association for Sexual Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. I got it right.
Okay. Yes, girl.
For me, that was a longer process because I started it earlier than most. So I think it took me a good 4 to 5 years to get
Wow.
fully certified. But now that I have it, I'm not letting that bad boy go.
No, you worked so hard for it too. So
Mhm.
what makes what you do in therapy different from like just a traditional therapist?
Well, first of all, just having knowledge, comfort, and competence about talking about sex and sexual intimacy is a big thing. There
Yeah.
are lots of therapists that just aren't comfortable talking about sex and won't even ask. And that can be a huge part of a dynamic that a couple is struggling with. Um, I have a new couple that I've only seen them twice now, but the reason they came to me is because they know not only am I not judgmental, but I'm knowledgeable about the kink community, BDSM, DS work, where their last therapist they felt was pretty old school. And
Oh,
so they didn't feel comfortable or that she was even comfortable talking to them. Um,
right.
so I think that's a really big part of it.
Yeah, no, that's huge, especially if you're, I mean, it's a very vulnerable conversation in general getting into therapy, but then also talking about sex and having, do you specifically work with couples or are you individualized?
I do both. Couples, when it comes to intimacy, is usually preferred because they're both part of the equation. And if
Right.
I'm just talking to one person, there's only so much sometimes they can do on their own. So when we're talking about sex, I definitely would love both people to be a part of it.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like I was saying, it's obviously a really vulnerable state for both of those things, like just traditional therapy, and then you get the sex part of it involved. Not to mention, you're sitting with the person that all these things are happening with. So I could totally understand like wanting to find someone that, has studied and understands like all of the education and the things that are going on to be able to better help the people that are coming into you.
Yeah.
Um, so what okay, I just lost my train of thought.
All good.
I'm like, wow, I was really going somewhere and then not so much. Hold on one second. Okay. This is a good transition. Leo, you gotta go. Go, go, go.
Was I hearing your cat?
That's my cat.
I was
Yeah.
like, is there a cat in my house?
Yeah, no, literally. He's He likes to get all up in the zone
All good. I just
of
was very confused.
he's always in the background. He like wants all of the attention. Okay, this is a great segue. So,
About talking about pussies.
yeah. Yeah. From one pussy to another. What are some of the struggles that you see in the relationships of your clients that come to see you?
Oh man, a lot of things. I think the biggest thing is just feeling safe to be vulnerable and have open conversations about sex. Um, Being able to just go to your partner and talk about anything,
Yeah.
this is a desire I have, or this aroused me, this doesn't work for me. I think that for some people, just hearing that it sounds simple, but then applying it, especially when you're talking about sex, is not. And a lot of people really are worried about, I think, judgment. They have
Yeah.
performance anxiety or expectation anxiety. Even if none of that stuff exists, people aren't talking about it to know that they're just kind of creating that for themselves.
Right.
So for me, that's the biggest thing. And then, if you're having anxiety in your head and you're not in your body, you're not probably really engaging, you're not enjoying the experience. So a lot of times it's about slowing things down, creating some safety in conversations and then getting to start having those conversations.
Okay, interesting. So, how do you like if a couple comes in and they're just like wanting to expand their sex life and they're like, I'm sure one of the first questions I could imagine is like, are you actively like having conversations about your sex? So it's like, what if they say no? So, like, how would you guide them to start having conversations about sex in their relationship outside of therapy?
I mean, I would want to understand why they're not having conversations first.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because of negative messages they received? Is it because they had a bad experience together in the past and they haven't known how to approach it? I think you really have to understand the why they're
Right.
not talking about it before you can start helping them figure out how to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. And obviously, it's different for everybody, right? So it's kind of like, I could see how it's like kind of a difficult question to answer because it's going to depend on what some of those comments are moving forward.
Right.
What do you recommend for people that are listening? Like, how can they start to open up these conversations around sex with their partner?
I mean, I kind of want to just say, just go for it, but I know that's not necessarily a very easy thing to do.
Yeah,
Just starting slow. I think you and I have talked offline just about like the course I created, which I know we'll probably chat about more later, but
for sure.
there's so many different like conversation starters and topics for people to just start kind of like slowly opening the conversation. It could be things about, I don't know, what's something that you like, what's something you dislike, maybe sharing about, I don't know, like a past experience or what they feel when they feel closest to their partner. And so just kind of small, topics or small just conversation pieces to just start opening the conversation.
Right.
And then if you start noticing, well, this is uncomfortable, pause, check in with yourself. Why am I feeling, uncomfortable right now? Or check in with your partner. How are you feeling about this? Are you comfortable if we continue? Should we pause? When do you want to come back to this? And so having safety and kind of check-ins or pauses if you need to just really understand why whatever is happening or coming up is happening.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good tip. I think the other part of it too, it's not like a one size fits all conversation. Like, you're not just going to have this one conversation and then, like, that's it. Our sex is going to be great and we know exactly what we want and where we want to go. It is like a constant conversation. So I like that you said, well, if you're feeling uncomfortable, just pause. That's fine. You can pick it up another day, or maybe like it's you have the day to day, a lot's going on, and you have date night planned for Friday, and you could pick it up over date night, like drinks and dinner, and kind of make it more fun and a little more casual and not so like serious.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing too is like all relationships, there's an evolution to the relationships. There's a reason people say you grow because
Right.
just life changes, needs change. If you have kids, right, things are different than when you don't have kids. And for me, it's the same with sex, where sex can be an evolution as well, especially when you start having conversations. Well, then maybe there's more safety to share about something you want to explore, right? And then
Yeah.
you have evolution in your sexual journey. Um, so I think that's also part of it too. It's not just like you talk about it, you figure it out, and that's what it is. Like it's going to be different. Things are going to change, or, it may feel different one day than it does a different day. And so it's not a black and white conversation either.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with all of that. What what do you do if you like have a client that comes in and there's, let's say, they're having issues in their sex life and you're telling them like, hey, I think you should bring your partner in, like we should talk about this as a group, like all together, and their partner does not want to be a part of the conversation. Like, how do you guide your client in a positive way to still create like some health and like boundaries around these experiences if their partner is unwilling to be a part of the program?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. So, first of all, once I start working with somebody individually, bringing a partner in might happen just for a session, just to get some kind of from their perspective.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like if I've been with working with someone individually, if they're ready for their partner to, be a part of it, I give them a referral to see someone else. So there's never a concern that I'm like on one person's side, or,
Right.
I'm aligned with one person because I was, seeing them first. Um, so when it comes to an individual, that can be tough. And, we can do some work on first helping them understand where they're at, maybe their own sexual beliefs, values, or comfort, maybe working through shame or anxiety, whatever's coming up for them. And then trying to help them communicate some of these things to their partner at home, which again, kind of only gets you so far. So
Right.
sometimes I'm able to give resources that the partner is open to if they're not open to actually going to therapy. Like my course is one of them. There's another course, another type of therapy I do is emotionally focused therapy, which really
Hmm.
helps people open up emotional conversations. So Sue Johnson, who created that, has kind of like an at-home online course called Hold Me Tight. So that's like a
Okay.
resource in, maybe they can get their partner to buy into something that they're doing on their own, and maybe that feels safer. So there's definitely resources, but it's hard if the partner is not, involved, or doesn't want to be involved. And
Yeah.
there's only so much that, a person can do to try to figure that out on their own.
Yeah, no, totally. I definitely think, I know for me specifically, I know you're like the therapist, you have to have this middle ground, but I know for me specifically, if
Mhm.
I was with a partner who was unwilling to work on the relationship in a healthy way, it wouldn't be the partner for me. Because, like, to me, it says, you're not willing to grow and do the hard work in this relationship that it's going to take to make serious changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sucks and it's hard, I mean, thankfully, like in my position, I am with someone that is very open-minded, like in day-to-day sexually with therapy, all the things. So, but I just think I look back on my past experiences and like the guys that I used to be with, they'd be like, no fucking way. And I think a lot of it is, well, because of the people that they were. It's like, I think if you're heavily on one side where like you think you can do no wrong, that person most likely doesn't want to go to therapy because that's like a very scary place for them to be told that like they are actually in the wrong.
Right. Well, and I'll tell you, I mean, my job as a therapist is to not just keep you together. My
Yeah.
job is to help people figure out what works best for them or what they want in their life. And if we do end up having a discussion about them contemplating ending the relationship, I
Yeah.
help them with, processing through that. whatever decisions they make in their life is their decisions to make. I'm just there to help them make them or process through their decisions so they feel good about making them. My opinion does not matter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. I could never be a therapist. I think I'd be way too emotionally involved. I don't know like how you separate those things. I'm sure it takes like a lot to be able to, find the balance between that relationship because yeah, it's true. It's like you're there and you do form a relationship with that person and you care for them as a person and you
Mm-hmm.
want to see them making the right decisions, but it's also still like their decision.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't say I'm not necessarily emotionally invested. Like, I have clients that I definitely care about, and I want their relationship to succeed. But ultimately, if it doesn't, it doesn't, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and I've had couples that I've worked with for a while that decided to separate, and that was the right decision for them. And that doesn't say that, like, going to therapy for them wasn't helpful. If anything, it was
Right.
because it
Yeah.
helped them figure out what path to go in their life.
Yeah, it's always helpful because you end up learning more about yourself, like why you make decisions or the decisions you make, like other people's thought processes. Like you learn more from that experience, whether it's individual or with a couple. Like there is a takeaway from it. Really quick, you mentioned something about like emotional, what was it?
Emotionally focused therapy.
Okay, so could you tell, like, what is that about exactly? Can you go a little deeper into that?
Yeah. So EFT was created by Sue Johnson a long time ago because she found that the therapy modalities that existed really didn't dive into the emotional piece enough. And
Hmm.
EFT is actually shown to be one of the most like successful types of therapies for couples to really get vulnerable, understand what's happening, have healing, repair, create security with their partner, create a deeper attachment for that kind of healthy, longevitous relationship. And so, really, it's about getting into the emotions where
Hmm.
a lot of people are kind of like in their thoughts, in their head. There's always an emotional piece happening, and that usually happens first. People just don't necessarily know to clue in or to understand messages they got about emotions. For example, when they were younger, if they couldn't go to a parent when they had hard emotions and they learned to
Oh,
rely on themselves, now as an adult, they may still be operating the same way. So they don't talk to their partner and they're just
yeah,
surviving on their own. But that's not really a relationship dynamic and that can be
right,
hurtful. So
right.
helping them understand, take the risk and share, like, I feel lonely. I feel really hurt. I fear that I'm going to lose you.
Yeah,
When your partner hears that versus, why didn't you take out the trash for the 10th time? Those are
right.
very different conversations.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's also like taking the account of putting yourself accountable for the way you're feeling instead of like projecting your feelings onto the other person.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's so interesting just to know that you also kind of use those. Would that be like a tactic like in this, or is this like a specific like different type of therapy that's taught?
I mean, so EFT you can get certified in, and I'm working
Oh,
on my
okay.
certification as well because that one is very much structured to a point.
Gotcha.
It's kind of like learning about how the couples dance and helping them figure out how they tango with each other. So
Right.
there's definitely like steps to that. Um, And so learning that and then incorporating like how do we talk about emotions around sex because they're not separate.
Yes,
um,
yes.
or talking about how this isn't across the board, but oftentimes in my experience women need that emotional intimacy to be able to feel safe or comfortable with physical intimacy, where some men, they show their emotional intimacy through their physical intimacy. So
Right.
sometimes those kind of like butt up against each other. So really helping people understand, work through those things. So it's a little bit of everything.
Okay. No, it's interesting because you're right. Like that statement that you made about how like women want men to show up and how men think they're showing up, but they're actually only like coming through the one channel through sex is kind of like the way I heard it. But
Mhm.
I think it's interesting to say that because I think a lot of men and women would feel that way and they kind of end up like chasing each other around where it's like the one guy's like, "Oh, but I'm showing you that I'm emotional and intimate and blah, 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 but it's not being received in the same way."
Well, they're probably not communicating it, and all
Yeah.
their partner's receiving is, "You just want sex. That's all you want
Yes.
from me." When really for them, maybe that is a really emotional, close experience for them, but they've never understood how to communicate that. So their partner can actually understand what's happening, and it's not just, "Oh, they're just horny all the time." Like there's more
Right.
to it.
Right. Oh God, we can literally go on and on. I we're gonna have to reschedule because we didn't even get in to the polyamorous relationships and kinks and any of that, which we have to have just like a full, like
Totally.
sexy, kinky episode. But before we do that, I know you mentioned earlier that you have a course that you created around your therapy. So I would love for you to kind of tell us a little about that, like what's incorporated in it, where people can find it, kind of give us the juicy details.
Yeah. So I call it the risque roundtable. Uh,
Cute.
that's something that's a little risky, a little sexy, kind of a play on words. So the website's just risqueroundtable.com. But I created a course for couples, thruples, whoever to do from the comfort of their home. It's online and it goes through different there's just different parts. So
Okay.
first part you're getting to talk a little bit about like sexual history and then the body and then your accelerators and brakes and so on. And it gives a lot of conversation prompts. It also gives questions for people to potentially answer on their own and then share with their partner, or it's a question that they're talking about together, and then
Okay.
activities to do. So it's
Love.
very, I don't know, there's just like a lot to it. And I'm very clear in my intro, it's not a replacement for therapy, but it's a great way to create more communication and exploration around sexual intimacy. If you're
Yeah.
doing it while you're in therapy, even better. But even if you're not in therapy, it can be so helpful. Um, there's purposeful check ins that are placed in there so people really know like it's okay to check in with how I'm feeling about this, how my partner's feeling. There's fun activities in there, there's connecting activities. So there's just a lot. And I'm really proud of it. And I think it's so helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like it's an amazing tool, like you said, especially to use while you're in therapy, kind of working through those steps too, but also just to help generate more healthy, vulnerable conversations. Even if you're not in therapy, I think it would be great. Like, if you're not in therapy and you're with someone and you're wanting to expand your sex life, definitely go check out this tool and utilize that because it sounds like it's a great stepping stone to start feeling a little more comfortable to kind of talking and opening up those conversations in a relationship. That's
Totally.
that's amazing. And I'll get all of that from you and we'll link it in the show notes too so that everybody can um find
Yeah.
it easily.
Yeah, and the way I wrote it in a way that I truly believe it's for everybody. It doesn't matter your sexuality, your gender, if you're in a monogamous relationship, a poly relationship. It's questions that apply to everybody, so it's applicable to anybody.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, really quick before we say goodbye, we are going to play the last little part of our last segment. Are you still talking? And it's just kind of like short answer, rapid fire questions, totally based off of you. So there's no judging. Okay. The first question: what do you wish more people knew about you?
Um, I wish more people, especially in my personal life, knew that just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean that they can't talk to me about stuff in their life.
Without paying.
Well, yeah. People just like they feel like because I do it for work that they can't come to me, but then I lose out on that sort of intimate relationship with
Yeah.
people because they just, I don't know, assume. Even though I've been very transparent, like, call me whenever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's nice. I mean, I guess I was thinking it in the other way. I guess I think I misheard. Like, people would always come to you. So that's why I was like, without paying. Like,
Oh, no, it's the opposite.
really, people are so respectful. Your friends are so respectful. I feel like all my friends would be like, what the fuck?
I mean, yes and no. They end up going to my husband a lot, and he's a great
Oh,
listener too. But
yeah.
then, like, they're getting this intimacy with him, support from him, and like, I'd love to be able to do that for my friends as well.
Yeah, totally. Well, you heard it here if you're listening. She wants you to hit her up. Okay, define dating.
I think dating is when you're going on dates. It could be with one person, it could be with multiple people. You're just exploring yourself, people, until
Yeah.
you maybe find someone or multiple people that you want to really be more committed to. And that's to me where the maybe the dating part kind of ends and then you're more committed and you still date that person, right? You have fun with them, you get to know them. It's just to me that's when the shift is made.
Yes. Yes. Give a sex tip for men.
Hmm. I would ask more questions. Ask
Oh,
more like, what do you like? Do you like it here? Do you want it faster? Do you like this pressure? Just ask more questions because, especially, I think a lot of
yes.
people, women and men, they don't necessarily know that it's okay to be vocal or to just tell you those things without being prompted.
Yes. I love that. That's such a good tip. Okay, zero communication during sex or zero communication in real life.
Neither.
You have to pick one. If you had to
Okay,
choose.
I would say zero communication during sex if you have really good communication outside of sex, because then you could talk about why that didn't work and then you could work on it.
And then you don't have to do it during sex. Got it. Okay, last one. Solo therapy or couples therapy?
I mean, if we're talking about sex, definitely couples for sure.
Cool. Okay, this was so great. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. And we're definitely going to reschedule before you go. Everybody that's listening, go check out the link in the description of this video so that you can check out our course and see what it all entails.
And your
Also,
listeners get a discount code as well.
oh, what's the discount code?
It's the word risk.
Okay, RISK.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. We'll have that in the show notes too. That's so nice of you. Thank you. And yeah, just share this episode to a friend, subscribe to the show. Everything's up on YouTube as well. So go subscribe to the YouTube. I feel like it's doing pretty good. I'm pretty
Good.
excited about
Yes,
it.
I love it.
And we will see you guys next week. Okay. Bye. Are you still talking? Girl, stop talking.